Most people think kindness is their greatest strength. They wear it like a badge of honor. They answer every call, solve every problem, apologize for things they never did, and smile even when they're exhausted. They believe this makes them lovable. They believe the more they sacrifice, the more valuable they become. But here's the brutal truth no one dares to tell them. The world rarely rewards people who constantly abandon themselves. It simply learns how much of them it can take. The people pleaser never loses everything in one dramatic moment. They disappear one compromise at a time. Every unnecessary yes is another piece of your identity handed away. Every forced smile is another silent agreement that your feelings matter less than everyone else's comfort. Every time you swallow your opinion to avoid conflict, you teach your own mind that your voice is negotiable. Eventually, you wake up and realize something terrifying. You no longer know where your real personality ends and your performance begins. Think about a castle that leaves its gates open day and night. At first, it feels welcoming, safe. But over time, people stop asking for permission to enter. They begin walking in as if they own the place. They take what they need, leave when they're satisfied, and never wonder what it costs the owner. That is exactly what happens to a person without boundaries. Your endless availability does not inspire respect. It teaches people that access to you is free. The hardest truth is this: many people are not attached to you. They are attached to the version of you that never says no. The moment you begin protecting your time, your peace, or your energy, something strange happens. Some people suddenly call you selfish. Others say you've changed. They accuse you of becoming cold or distant. But pay attention. They are not mourning the loss of your kindness. They are mourning the loss of their unlimited access to it. People-pleasing creates an invisible prison because it convinces you that your value depends on how useful you are. You begin measuring your worth by how many problems you solve, how many people approve of you, and how little conflict you create. That is not confidence. That is dependence disguised as kindness. Imagine carrying chains so long that eventually you mistake them for part of your body. You stop trying to remove them because you've forgotten what freedom feels like. That is what approval addiction does. You become so accustomed to asking, "Will they be happy?" that you never stop to ask, "What do I actually want?" Somewhere along the way, your own desires become strangers. Here's what most people never understand. The world does not respect those who constantly seek permission to exist. It respects those who quietly respect themselves. Every time you betray your own values to avoid disappointing someone else, your subconscious notices. It keeps score. It begins whispering, "If even you won't stand up for yourself, why should anyone else?" Confidence cannot grow inside a person who repeatedly proves that everyone else's comfort is more important than their own truth. This is why some of the kindest people secretly feel the most exhausted. They are fighting two battles every day, one against the demands of others, and another against the guilt they feel whenever they consider choosing themselves. That guilt is not proof you're doing something wrong. It is proof you've spent too long believing that self-neglect is a virtue. A tree cannot keep giving fruit if no one allows its roots to absorb water. A candle cannot continue giving light if it burns itself down for every passing stranger. And you cannot continue giving pieces of yourself away while expecting your spirit to remain whole. The day you stop living for approval, something powerful begins happening. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop explaining every decision as if your life belongs to a public jury. You stop confusing obedience with kindness. Some people will leave because they only loved the version of you that was easy to control. Let them leave, because anyone who only values you while you are sacrificing yourself never valued you. They valued your compliance. The people pleaser inside you survives on one lie. If I make everyone happy, they'll finally choose me. But life keeps proving the opposite. People respect those who respect themselves. They trust those who stand by their principles. They remember those who have the courage to disappoint others rather than betray themselves. So let the guilt come. Let the misunderstanding come. Let the uncomfortable silence come. They are not signs that you're becoming a worse person. They are signs that you're finally becoming a real one, because the people pleaser doesn't die when you become selfish. The people pleaser dies the moment you realize your life was never meant to be spent earning permission to be yourself. And that is the moment your real freedom begins. Every people pleaser has one habit that quietly destroys their power, and almost none of them realize they're doing it. They explain everything, every decision, every boundary, every no. They believe that if they can just find the perfect words, people will finally understand them. But that belief is exactly what keeps them trapped. The truth is brutal. The more you explain yourself, the more you communicate that your decisions are open for negotiation. Think about it. When someone asks you for something you cannot give, what is your first instinct? You don't simply say, "I can't." You build a case, you list your responsibilities, you apologize repeatedly. You try to convince them that your reason is acceptable. In that moment, you are no longer making a decision. You are asking permission to make one. And the moment you ask permission to protect your own life, you quietly hand your power to someone else. Manipulative people recognize this immediately. They are not listening to your explanation. They are listening for weakness. Every extra sentence tells them the same thing. Push a little harder, and they'll change their mind. Imagine standing in front of your own house while a stranger knocks on the door asking to come inside. If you confidently say, "No," the conversation ends. But if you begin explaining yourself for 5 minutes, something changes. The stranger realizes your answer is no longer solid. It has become flexible. Now they know they only need to challenge your reasons instead of respecting your decision. That is exactly how psychological manipulation works. The people pleaser thinks explanations create understanding. The manipulator knows explanations create openings. This is why some people always seem surrounded by those who ignore their boundaries. It isn't because they are unlucky. It's because they unknowingly trained people to believe every boundary can be negotiated. One more request, one more favor, one more chance, one more sacrifice. Eventually, your entire life becomes a series of negotiations where everyone wins except you. The most dangerous sentence a people pleaser believes is this: "If I explain myself well enough, they'll understand." No, some people understand perfectly. They simply don't care, because your exhaustion benefits them. Your silence benefits them. Your inability to say no benefits them. And every explanation teaches them that your boundaries exist only until someone applies enough pressure. Picture a wolf walking through the forest. It never stops to explain where it is going. It never asks the other animals whether its path is acceptable. It moves with certainty, because certainty itself commands respect. Human beings are no different. People instinctively trust those who make calm decisions without desperately trying to justify every move. Notice the people you naturally admire: leaders, successful entrepreneurs, strong-minded individuals. They don't spend their lives defending every decision they make. They listen, they think, they decide, then they move forward, not because they're arrogant, because they understand a powerful psychological truth. Your life is not a courtroom. You are not on trial. You do not owe the world a defense for every choice that protects your peace. Of course, kindness still matters. Respect still matters. You can decline with compassion. You can disagree with grace, but compassion is completely different from surrender. Respect is completely different from obedience. The strongest people remain polite without becoming available to everyone. Here's something that will change the way you see people forever. The moment you stop over-explaining, some relationships will immediately become uncomfortable. Watch carefully. Some people will become angry. Some will call you selfish. Some will accuse you of changing. But ask yourself one question. If someone only treats you well while you ignore your own needs, did they ever respect you? Or did they simply enjoy controlling the version of you that never resisted? That question exposes more truth than 1,000 conversations ever could. Every time you calmly refuse without guilt, your mind receives a powerful message. My needs matter. Every time you stop defending your right to have boundaries, your confidence grows stronger. Every time you choose clarity over approval, another piece of the people pleaser disappears. One day you'll notice something extraordinary. You no longer feel anxious before saying no. You no longer rehearse conversations in your head, hoping everyone will approve. You no longer carry the exhausting responsibility of making every person comfortable, because you finally understand something that changes everything. People who truly respect you never needed endless explanations. Only people who benefited from controlling you demanded them. And the day you stop defending every decision is the day the people pleaser inside you begins to disappear forever. The greatest prison a people pleaser lives in is not created by other people. It is created by one invisible addiction, the addiction to validation. It is so subtle that most people never recognize it. They don't chase money, they don't chase power, they chase approval. Every compliment becomes emotional fuel. Every criticism becomes emotional poison. Their mood rises and falls depending on how other people see them. Without realizing it, they hand strangers the power to decide whether they deserve confidence or self-respect. That is one of the most dangerous ways to live. Imagine giving every person you meet a remote control connected directly to your emotions. One person presses a button labeled praise, and you feel unstoppable. Another presses a button labeled rejection, and suddenly you question your entire identity. A third person ignores you completely, and now you're wondering what you did wrong. Your happiness no longer belongs to you. It belongs to whoever happens to be holding the remote. That is not confidence. That is emotional dependence. The terrifying part is that people rarely notice when this begins. It starts with harmless thoughts. I hope they like me. I don't want them to think badly of me. Maybe I should change so they'll accept me. Slowly those thoughts become habits. Then those habits become identity. Eventually, you stop asking yourself one simple question. What do I believe? Instead, your mind only asks, what will they think? And that is the exact moment you stop living your own life. Think about a compass. A compass only works because it points in one direction regardless of the weather around it. Imagine if every passing storm changed where the compass pointed. It would become useless. That is exactly what happens when your self-worth depends on other people's opinions. Every criticism changes your direction. Every compliment changes your identity. Every rejection changes your confidence. You spend your life spinning instead of moving forward. People who manipulate others understand this psychology better than most people understand themselves. They know approval is a currency. Give a little. Take it away, give it back, take it away again. Soon the people pleaser begins working harder and harder just to receive another small dose of acceptance. It becomes emotional gambling. Just one more compliment. Just one more thank you. Just one more person liking me. But validation is like drinking salt water. The more you consume it, the thirstier you become. No amount of approval ever feels enough because it comes from outside instead of within. Now imagine a giant oak tree standing in the middle of an empty field. Does it grow taller because people clap for it? Does it become stronger because strangers admire it? No. Its strength comes from roots nobody sees. Your confidence must grow the same way. Invisible tunnel. Independent. Because external validation disappears the moment circumstances change, looks change, successes changes, relationships change, opinions change. But self-respect built from your own standards survives every season. This is why emotionally free people become so difficult to manipulate. Compliments don't control them. Criticism doesn't control them. Silence doesn't control them. Rejection doesn't control them. Not because they don't care what people think, because they refuse to let other people's opinions become the foundation of their identity. There is a brutal truth most people avoid. The person constantly chasing approval eventually becomes whoever everyone else wants them to be, not because they are dishonest, because they become terrified of disappointing people. They adjust their personality. They hide their opinions. They suppress their dreams. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They agree with ideas they secretly reject. Little by little, the real person disappears beneath a performance designed to earn acceptance. One day they look in the mirror and realize something frightening. They've spent years becoming lovable, but they no longer recognize themselves. Freedom begins the moment you stop asking the world to confirm your value. Your worth does not increase because someone praises you. It does not decrease because someone rejects you. Your value existed long before either opinion appeared. The strongest confidence grows when you become the one person whose approval you refuse to lose. Because the day approval becomes optional instead of necessary is the day the people pleaser inside you begins to disappear forever. The moment you begin saying no, something strange happens. You expect peace, but instead you often encounter resistance. People become surprised, some become disappointed, others become angry. For a moment, it feels as if setting a boundary has made you a worse person. That feeling is exactly why so many people remain trapped in people-pleasing for years. They mistake guilt for wrongdoing. But guilt is not always a sign that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it is simply the emotional withdrawal that comes from breaking an old habit. For years, you trained people to expect unlimited access to your time, your attention, and your energy. You answered every message immediately. You accepted every request. You solved problems that were never yours. You became the person everyone depended on because you believed that being needed was the same thing as being valued. Then one day, you finally choose yourself. You politely decline. You protect your schedule. You refuse to sacrifice your peace. Suddenly, people act as if you've changed. They're right. You have. And that's exactly what needed to happen. Imagine a shop that gives away free products every single day. People line up outside because they know they can take whatever they want without paying a price. Now imagine the owner decides to stop giving everything away. Many customers become upset, not because the owner is unfair, but because they had become comfortable receiving something valuable without respecting its worth. The same psychology exists in relationships. When your boundaries appear for the first time, people who benefited from your lack of boundaries often mistake your self-respect for selfishness. Here is a truth that changes everything. Every time you say yes to something that violates your values, you quietly teach people that your boundaries are optional. Every time you say no with calm confidence, you teach them something different. You teach them how to respect you. People often believe respect is earned through endless kindness. It is not. Respect is earned through consistency. When your words and your actions finally match, people begin understanding exactly where they stand with you. They may not always like it, but they will stop expecting you to betray yourself just to make them comfortable. Think about a strong fence surrounding a beautiful garden. The fence does not exist because the garden hates visitors. It exists because the garden has something worth protecting. Without it, anyone can enter, take what they want, and leave destruction behind. Healthy boundaries work the same way. They are not walls built from anger. They are acts of self-respect. They protect your energy so it can be invested in the people, goals, and relationships that truly deserve it. One of the biggest lies people pleasers believe is that saying no will make them lose everyone they care about. The reality is much more revealing. Boundaries do not destroy healthy relationships. They expose unhealthy ones. The people who genuinely respect you may feel disappointed occasionally, but they will also respect your honesty. The people who become furious every time you protect yourself reveal something important. They were never attached to you. They were attached to the version of you that never challenged them. That realization can be painful, but it is also incredibly freeing. Picture an archer preparing to hit a distant target. Before releasing the arrow, they must pull it backward. From the outside, it appears as though the arrow is moving away from its goal. In reality, that backward movement creates the strength needed to move forward. Setting boundaries often feels exactly the same. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Some people distance themselves. Conflict may even appear. But that temporary discomfort is building a life where your time, your peace, and your identity finally belong to you again. Another powerful shift happens when you stop saying yes out of fear. You begin discovering who truly values your presence instead of your usefulness. Some relationships become stronger because they are now built on honesty instead of obligation. Others quietly disappear because they depended on your inability to refuse. As painful as that can feel, it is not a loss. It is clarity. The people pleaser believes love must always be earned through sacrifice. The emotionally free person understands that real relationships survive honest boundaries. You do not owe endless access to anyone simply because they ask. Your kindness should be a gift, not an obligation. Your time should be invested, not demanded. And your peace should never become the price you pay to keep everyone else comfortable. Because the day you stop feeling guilty for protecting your own life is the day the people pleaser inside you truly begins to die. There comes a moment in every people pleaser's life when they look in the mirror and realize something deeply unsettling. They have spent so many years becoming who everyone else wanted them to be that they no longer remember who they are without an audience. They know how to make people comfortable. They know how to avoid conflict. They know how to become exactly what every room expects. But when they are completely alone, a frightening question appears. Who am I when I stop performing? That question changes everything. Because people-pleasing is not just a habit, it is a performance. You become the funny one because people expect it. You become the agreeable one because disagreement makes others uncomfortable. You become the helper because everyone praises your generosity. Little by little, your personality stops growing naturally. It begins adapting for survival. Every conversation becomes another stage. Every relationship becomes another performance. You are no longer expressing yourself. You are managing other people's emotions. And the tragedy is that most people applaud the performance while the real person quietly disappears. Imagine an actor who spends 30 years playing the same role every single day. Morning, afternoon, night. Eventually, something dangerous happens. They no longer know where the character ends and where they begin. That is exactly what happens to a chronic people pleaser. The mask becomes so familiar that removing it feels terrifying. They fear that if people see their real opinions, real emotions, or real boundaries, they will no longer be accepted. But acceptance purchased through pretending is never real acceptance. If someone only loves the version of you that constantly sacrifices itself, they are not loving you. They are loving the performance. Think about a mirror covered with layers of dust. Every year another layer settles on the surface until eventually the reflection disappears. The person has not vanished. It has simply been hidden. Your authentic self works the same way. It has never disappeared. It has only been buried beneath years of pretending, apologizing, adjusting, and becoming whoever other people expected you to become. The hardest part of becoming authentic is accepting that not everyone will celebrate your transformation. Some people preferred the version of you that never disagreed. Some preferred the version of you that always made itself available. Some preferred the version of you that ignored its own needs, so theirs could always come first. The moment you stop performing, those people may become uncomfortable. Let them. Discomfort is often the price of truth. Picture a wild eagle raised inside a cage. For years it believes flying is dangerous because the cage became normal. Freedom is finally possible. Yet the eagle hesitates. Why? Because safety has become more familiar than possibility. Many people live exactly this way. They remain trapped inside personalities they outgrew years ago because pretending has become more comfortable than authenticity. But real confidence is impossible without authenticity. You cannot respect a version of yourself that exists only to satisfy everyone else. Every time you hide your real opinion to avoid rejection, your confidence weakens. Every time you betray your own values just to keep someone comfortable, your identity becomes smaller. Every time you pretend to be someone you're not, you quietly teach yourself one devastating lesson. The real me isn't enough. That lie has destroyed more confidence than failure ever could. Authenticity is not about becoming rude. It is not about rejecting kindness. It is about refusing to abandon yourself simply because honesty might disappoint someone else. The people worth keeping in your life will not require a performance. They may not agree with every decision. They may not understand every boundary, but they will respect the person who finally has the courage to become real. And that courage changes everything. Because once you stop performing for acceptance, you discover something remarkable. The relationships that remain become deeper. The respect you receive becomes genuine. The peace you feel becomes permanent. Most importantly, you finally meet the person you spent years trying to protect everyone else from, yourself. Because the people pleaser dies the moment you stop asking, "Who do they want me to be?" and start living as the person you were always meant to become. The people pleaser inside you does not disappear the moment you learn to say no. It dies the moment you stop believing that your purpose is to carry everyone else's emotions. That is the final chain. For years, you have probably felt responsible for how other people feel. If someone became disappointed, you blamed yourself. If someone became angry, you rushed to fix it. If someone misunderstood you, you felt obligated to change their opinion. You lived as though keeping everyone emotionally comfortable was your personal responsibility. But it never was. That belief has stolen more peace than failure ever could. Imagine spending your entire life carrying a heavy suitcase through every city you visit. It slows you down, exhausts you, and makes every journey harder. One day someone finally asks, "Why are you carrying that?" You answer, "Because I thought it was mine." They open the suitcase, and you discover something shocking. Every item inside belongs to someone else. Their expectations, their disappointment, their insecurity, their opinions, their anger, their fears. You spent years carrying emotional weight that was never yours to begin with. That is exactly what people-pleasing feels like. The people-pleaser wakes up every morning believing they must manage everyone else's happiness. They become uncomfortable whenever someone is upset, even if they did nothing wrong. They confuse another person's emotions with their own responsibility. Slowly, they stop living. They start managing conversations, managing reactions, managing expectations, managing everyone's comfort except their own. And while they protect everyone else's peace, their own quietly disappears. Here is one of the hardest truths you will ever hear. You are not responsible for how people react to your boundaries. You are responsible for communicating them honestly. There is a huge difference. If someone becomes angry because you protected your time, that anger belongs to them. If someone becomes disappointed because you refuse to sacrifice yourself, that disappointment belongs to them. If someone walks away because you finally respected yourself, that decision belongs to them. You cannot spend your life trying to control emotions that were never yours to control. Picture the sun rising every morning. It shines on mountains, oceans, forests, and cities without asking whether every single person approves of its light. Some people celebrate the sunrise. Others sleep through it. The sun never changes its purpose because of either reaction. It simply continues being what it was created to be. That is emotional freedom. The people pleaser, however, changes constantly. If one person dislikes them, they become quieter. If another person demands more, they give more. If someone criticizes them, they reshape themselves again. Eventually, they stop living according to values and begin living according to reactions. The strongest people refuse to live that way. They understand something that emotionally dependent people never do. You can be kind without becoming available to everyone. You can be compassionate without carrying everyone's pain. You can love people without abandoning yourself. There will always be people who misunderstand your growth. Some will call your boundaries selfish because your boundaries limit their control. Others will accuse you of changing because they preferred the version of you that always said yes. Let them think what they want. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your life. Not every person deserves an explanation. Freedom begins when approval stops being your destination. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff after years of living inside a cage. Behind you is the old life, constant guilt, endless explanations, emotional exhaustion, and the fear of disappointing everyone. In front of you is something unfamiliar: authenticity, self-respect, peace. At first, it feels uncomfortable, because freedom always feels unfamiliar to someone who has lived in chains. But every step you take away from approval is another step toward yourself. One day you'll notice something incredible. You no longer apologize for existing. You no longer panic when someone disagrees with you. You no longer lose sleep trying to make everyone understand your choices. Instead, you wake up with a quiet confidence that cannot be taken away because it no longer depends on anyone else's permission. That is the day your real life begins, not because everyone accepts you, but because for the first time, you finally accept yourself. And the moment you stop abandoning yourself just to be accepted by others is the moment the people pleaser inside you dies forever.